The sky over Ouagadougou was painted in soft, dusty orange. It was the hour of stillness. Not quite dawn, not yet morning. A breeze swept through the palm trees lining the presidential garden, stirring the leaves but not disturbing the silence. It was the kind of silence that felt earned, but in truth it was only the calm before something unspeakable. President Ibrahim Traore was on his knees, forehead to the grass, lips moving in silent prayer. No guards, no aides, just him, the earth, and the weight of the morning. Hidden beneath the flowering jacaranda trees stood a man dressed as a palace gardener. He held a leaf blower in one hand. In the other, pressed tight against his chest under his apron, was a pistol fitted with a silencer. His name was Daniel Kane, and he wasn't from Burkina Faso. He wasn't even African. He was from Langley, Virginia, a trained operative, a phantom built by years of covert ops and black-budget wars. He had memorized every entry point in the palace, learned the routines of every guard, mapped every blind spot. He'd waited through the night, unmoving, breathing in rhythm with the wind. Now, with his target kneeling just meters away, he exhaled. One clean shot, they'd told him. No mess, no evidence, no witnesses. He stepped forward. The soft click of the pistol's safety was nearly imperceptible, except to Ibrahim, who didn't flinch, didn't turn, didn't even lift his head. But he spoke. "You came a long way to die in this garden, didn't you?" Daniel froze. How? Before he could aim, the grass exploded. Traore spun, swift as a desert wind, sweeping Kane's legs from beneath him. The gun flew into the bushes. A blur of fists, knees, elbows followed. Daniel fought hard. He was trained for close combat, but something about Traore's style was raw. Russian precision, Cuban aggression, Sahelian unpredictability, and not once did Traore hesitate. In seconds, Daniel was on his back, face pressed into the soil, both arms pinned behind him. Footsteps thundered in from the edges of the garden. The Red Lions, Traore's elite security unit, emerged from the trees. "No one fires," Traore commanded, breath steady. "He's not just a hitman. He's a message." Daniel snarled. Beneath him, "You're too late, Ibrahim. You've already lost." Traore leaned closer. "Then say it, loud. I want to know who sent the message." They dragged Daniel into the underground bunker beneath the palace, a stone chamber with no windows and a single steel chair. He was cuffed and left under the light of a bare bulb. 10 minutes later, Ibrahim Traore entered. No guards, no weapons, just a glass of strong black tea and a file under his arm. He placed the tea gently on the table and sat across from the man who had come to kill him. Daniel didn't speak. He stared at the wall, jaw clenched. "You're calm for someone who failed," Traore said, sipping. Daniel finally turned his gaze. "You already know who I am." "Say it anyway. I want it on record." Daniel's lip curled. "Langley, Special Activities Division, but the green light didn't come from there. It came from Abidjan, from Ouattara. Your neighbor sent me." Traore leaned back. "So Côte d'Ivoire wants my head." "Why?" Daniel's smile faded. "You're turning the region upside down. Kicking the French out, shaking hands with the Russians, talking about unity. You're dangerous. Worse, you're popular." A pause. Then he added, "You were never supposed to last this long." There was a silence heavy enough to crush bone. Traore stood, paced the room, then asked without turning, "Who helped you get past my gates?" Daniel's voice was low, mocking. "You want names? Look around. Half your palace staff smiles for you during the day, but some of them took money at night. Someone inside gave me the access code." He leaned forward. "And they're meeting again. Tonight." Traore stopped pacing. "Where?" Daniel only smiled. "I'll find them," the president said, "and I'll ask the next question with a loaded gun." That night, while the palace shimmered under soft golden lights and the city hummed in sleep, a different current flowed beneath the surface. At 11:37 p.m., 7 men gathered in a storage room beneath the palace kitchen. Among them, 3 soldiers, a government aide, a palace doctor, a technician, and a lieutenant named Bo, the youngest of the group. Bo asked, voice trembling, "What if the president knows?" "He doesn't," the doctor replied. "The poison is already working. He'll be dead by morning." A tablet was passed around. The screen displayed one phrase: Operation Ivory Flame, Phase 2. The men nodded. Then the door creaked open. At first, no one reacted. Just a soldier walking in. Uniform standard. Cap pulled low. Face mostly hidden behind a scarf. Then he spoke. "You talk like men," he said, "but plot like rats." Every man in the room froze. Ibrahim Traore pulled down his scarf. "If you move, you die." One of the soldiers reached for his sidearm, but Traore already had his drawn, steady, pointed. "Don't," he said. The doctor stuttered. How did you—" "You poisoned my tea," he said, "but I never drank it. You sent a man from America, but he talked, and now you think you're safe." He stepped forward. "But tonight, Ivory Flame dies." Before anyone could blink, the door burst open. Red lions flooded in, silent and merciless. Not a shot was fired. The conspirators were dragged out in silence, pale and stunned. But as the last man was pulled away, the doctor whispered, barely audible, "You don't understand. You stopped the spy, but not the snake." Traore turned sharply. "Who?" The doctor smiled, bloody and defeated. "There's another, higher than me, already moving." Traore stared, jaw tight. "Then we stop him before he strikes." The next morning, Ouagadougou awoke to an overcast sky. No rain, just pressure, the kind that made the air feel tight in the lungs. Inside the presidential office, Traore stood over a large table. Spread across it, 7 photos of the men arrested the night before. Soldiers, a doctor, his own advisor, faces he once trusted, all traitors, but one face was missing. The real leader, Traore said to his intelligence chief, "is still out. There." The chief nodded solemnly. "A snake in your shadow." Just then, a message arrived via secure channel, supposedly from the U.S. Embassy. Washington regrets the misunderstanding. The agent acted independently. We request a private dialogue to avoid further escalation. Traore frowned. No apology, no ownership, just silence. He studied the message closely. The font is off. The wording's too cold. "Get me cyber." Moments later, his head of cybersecurity entered. She tapped a few keys, then froze. "The channel is real, but the origin IP..." "Where?" Traore asked. She hesitated. "Inside Côte d'Ivoire, military-grade private network." Traore's blood turned cold. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. Then, very quietly, "So it begins." The sound of the heavy steel door echoed like a gunshot as it slammed shut behind them. Daniel Kane was cuffed to a thick iron chair in the center of the underground bunker. The stone walls sweated in the stale air, and the only light came from a single naked bulb swaying above his head. Shadows danced around him like ghosts, flickering each time the bulb swung. President Ibrahim Traore stood just out of reach, arms folded, a storm hidden behind calm eyes. Daniel gave him a crooked smile. "No tea this time?" "You don't deserve tea," Traore replied. "You deserve to vanish." Kane tilted his head. "Then why am I still breathing?" "Because you're going to help me dig out the rest of the rot," Traore said, stepping forward. "And because I believe men like you love to talk when they think it makes them powerful." Kane laughed once, dry, short. "Power? You think that's what this is about?" "You tried to assassinate the president of a sovereign nation," Traore said. Of course it's about power. No, Cain replied. It's about fear. Your kind terrifies the people I work for. You took the game board and flipped it upside down. Now they're scrambling to put the pieces back. You're not supposed to inspire anyone, Ibrahim. You're supposed to disappear. Traore circled the chair slowly. And who, exactly, gave the order for my disappearance? You already know. Ouattara gave the green light, but the push came from much higher. The kind of people whose names don't show up on press releases. And you were just the tool? No, Cain said, eyes flashing. I was the insurance, the clean option. Traore stopped walking. Tell me who let you in, he said, voice flat. Cain didn't blink. No. You want me to pull your nails out? Cain grinned. I've had worse. Torture me, kill me, parade me on your national broadcast. It won't change a thing. Because someone on your staff gave me the palace gate code. Someone with direct access. You might arrest a few pawns, but the bishop's already moved. Traore's eyes narrowed. You have no idea who you're standing in front of, he said. Cain raised an eyebrow. Don't I? You're a soldier who turned into a symbol, a captain who dared to defy old masters. But symbols are dangerous when they start thinking they're untouchable. You want to know how deep it goes? I'll give you a gift. They're meeting again tonight. Same network, different room. Your house is full of termites, Ibrahim, and the walls are hollowing. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was charged. Traore leaned in close, face unreadable. Thank you, he said softly. That's all I needed. He turned and walked to the door. I'll see myself to the meeting then, he added, and exited without looking back. Inside the presidential command room, the air was electric. Maps were pinned to walls. Screens glowed with surveillance footage, encrypted chats, access logs. Captain Idrissa, head of counterintelligence, stood at attention while Traore paced in front of a projection of the palace blueprint. You trust your team? Traore asked without turning. I do. Good. I don't. Captain Idrissa blinked. I want eyes on everyone, Traore continued. No one knows except you, me, and two men you'd stake your life on. Idrissa nodded. What are we watching for? Movements, side chats, digital slips. We're looking for fear. The kind people try to hide. He pointed to a basement level on the screen. Cain says they're meeting here tonight. I'm going to be there, alone, disguised. Sir, I'm not asking permission. Prepare me a uniform standard infantry, face covering, earpiece, silent comms, and get me schematics for every door into that room. Captain Idrissa hesitated. You're planning to walk into a room full of armed traitors? Traore turned to him, calm and deliberate. They think I'm dying. Let them keep thinking. Back, in his private chamber, Traore sat alone. The only sound was the ticking of a clock. His tea sat untouched. His phone buzzed. A text from his cybersecurity officer. 2 unusual logins, both from internal terminals. One traced to medical wing, other from kitchen-level network hub. He stared at the message, then typed one word back. Observe. Then he changed into his disguise. Midnight. 3 figures moved through the palace in silence. One was Ibrahim Traore, now wearing the uniform of a low-ranking palace guard. The 2 others were Red Lion operatives, handpicked by Idrissa. They separated at the basement junction, leaving Traore alone as planned. The hallway was long, dimly lit, the kind of space meant to be forgotten. Traore's boots made no sound on the floor. Ahead, a flicker of light leaked from beneath a door. Voices murmured. He moved closer. 7 people, 2 of them armed. One wore a white coat, the palace doctor. Another had a communications tablet in hand. Phase 2 will activate within 72 hours, the man with the tablet whispered. Once confirmation comes from Abidjan, we proceed. The doctor shook his head. It's risky. Traore's unpredictable. That's why Daniel was sent. But even if he failed, the poison is slow. He's already weakening. Are you sure? Positive. And we still have the backup plan. General Dio's in place. Sangare is ready. We only need the final approval. A younger man, Lieutenant Bo, nervous and sweating, asked, "What if he finds out?" The doctor laughed. "Then he dies faster." A slow silence settled. Then another voice entered the room. Low, measured, familiar. "Funny," it said. "I was thinking the same thing." All heads turned. Traore stood in the doorway. The room erupted in chaos. One man reached for his pistol. Traore's shot hit the wall beside his hand. Another tried to run, but the door slammed shut behind them. "You talk revolution in whispers," Traore said, stepping forward, "but you sell your country for scraps." The doctor's voice broke. How did you survive?" "I drank the tea," Traore said, "but I have friends who check things I don't." A pause. Then, "You're not just traitors, you're cowards." The Red Lions burst in through the side door, weapons drawn. "No shots," Traore said. "Take them alive, I want their voices." As they were dragged out, one conspirator hissed, "You think this ends with us? We're not even generals." The doctor, eyes swollen with fear, whispered, "You missed the snake. He's higher than me, and he's moving." Traore stepped closer. "Who?" But the doctor only smiled. "You already know him." Back in the war room, Traore reviewed the arrests. 7 men, all with clearance, one with access to his private chamber. "We've got names," Idrissa said, "but the general the doctor mentioned, it's not one of them." Traore stared at the wall, at the photographs of each man. "They said the poison would work slowly," he murmured. "How did they know what I'd drink, or when?" "They must have surveillance on you." "Or," Traore said, "someone close is still feeding them information." Captain Idrissa shifted uneasily. "You think it's someone in the inner bay circle?" "I think," Traore said, "that the closer I get to the truth, the more invisible my enemies become." He turned to a map of palace departments and drew a circle. "Start with medical, then check defense ministry. I want to know who's been in both places this week." "And what will you do?" Traore picked up a clean cup of tea and held it to the light. "I'll let them keep thinking I'm dying." He sipped. "And when they come to bury me, I'll be the one digging graves." The steel door groaned shut behind them. The 7 men stood in a line, hands bound, eyes darting. The chill of the underground cells seeped through the floor and into their bones. None dared speak. President Ibrahim Traore paced in front of them, his soldier's uniform now traded for a black tunic, his eyes dark but clear. He was not here to interrogate. He was here to listen. "You planned a funeral?" he began. "And you forgot to ask if the corpse agreed." No one answered. Traore stopped in front of the palace doctor, the same man who had treated his headaches weeks earlier, who had smiled when handing him his morning tea. "Tell me something," Traore said quietly. "How long have you known you'd betray me?" The doctor didn't look up. "You were going to kill me with tea," Traore continued. "So polite, so clean. Why?" Still silence. "You thought I wouldn't notice the slow fever, the tightness in my chest. You wanted it to look like illness." The doctor finally spoke, voice trembling. "I was given a choice." "By whom?" "I don't know his name," he whispered. "Only the code, ivory flame. The orders came in print, no return, no reply." Traore nodded, thoughtful. "Who else in this palace is part of it?" "I only spoke to one contact," the doctor said. "He called himself Bo, the lieutenant." Traore turned. Lieutenant Bo, the youngest among the group, was shaking. "They said my family would be safe," Bo blurted. "I didn't want to." "You gave a killer access to my home. I didn't know he'd go that far. I just gave him the code." Traore approached slowly. There's no halfway in treason. Bo broke. It was General Dio. I heard his name. They said nothing moved without his signal. Traore's gaze sharpened. That name again? General Yakuba Dio, a man with decades in the army, a legend to many, a father figure to some. Traore had once called him a pillar of national defense. He turned to the Red Lions. Separate them. No one speaks to the others. I want their full testimonies, written and recorded, and lock Bo alone. As the guards moved in, the doctor cleared his throat. Traore looked back. You think you stopped something tonight, the doctor said, but all you did was slow it down. I was just the message. Traore narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? You caught the messenger. But the master is still inside, and he's watching you. A beat of silence. Traore took one step forward. Who is he? The doctor's eyes gleamed, even in fear. He's not in this room. He's at your table. He shakes your hand. Traore said nothing. The doctor smirked. You'll never see him, but he sees you. Upstairs, in the Situation Room, Traore sat with Captain Idrissa, surrounded by notes, maps, digital records. Testimonies were coming in, overlapping stories, partial truths, names whispered between lines. The wall was covered now with photos. Bo, the doctor, 4 soldiers, 1 aide. Arrows between them, communication timelines, movement logs, all of it incomplete, but one name connected multiple paths. Dio Traore stared at the name. You think it's him? Idrissa asked. Traore didn't answer. Sir? Traore spoke without blinking. I think the real infection wears a uniform of honor. Idrissa leaned forward. General Dio has full access to strategic communications, the military planning room, and 3 of your advisory boards. I know. He was in charge of your first anti-insurgency training. You called him the shield of the revolution. I was wrong, Traore said. The shield is cracked. Maybe it always was. Idrissa hesitated. If it's Dio, this goes deeper than we thought. No, Traore said. This goes global. An hour later, Traore was in his private study. He turned off every electronic device in the room. No cameras, no mics, just him and a notebook. He scribbled something by hand, a short list of names. Each one had shared a moment with him in the last 2 weeks. A cup of tea, a closed-door conversation, a hand on his shoulder. Bo was one. The doctor was another. Dio was the third. The 4th name was still blank. There was a knock. He opened the door to see Captain Idrissa, face grim. We finished cross-checking the data. And there's something else. Bo accessed the communications hub last Thursday night. That's how the poison delivery was coordinated. And who authorized that shift? Idrissa held up a document. Dio signed it personally. Traore didn't flinch. And Kane, still in the bunker, quiet, watching. Let him watch, Traore said. But tighten security. No outside contact, no food without inspection, no guards alone with him. I want that bunker treated like a war front. He paused. And Idrissa? Sir? Watch Dio. But don't confront him yet. Why? Traore stared into the distance. Because I want to know who he's watching. At 4 a.m., the halls of the palace were still. The only movement came from the Red Lions, cycling rotations in double shifts, eyes sharp, hands close, to their weapons. But inside the intelligence hub, screens flickered with new alerts. A cyber officer called out, Sir! Unauthorized ping on a closed channel. Military grade. Came from the West Wing. Idrissa leaned over the console. Where exactly? Communications Node B. Under the command office. And who has access? The officer hesitated. 1. Person, General Dio. Idrissa's stomach turned. Trace the signal. Do not alert anyone. Not even the president. Not yet. The officer nodded. Understood. The signal ended 5 seconds later. But the digital trail remained, and it didn't lead outside the country. It went inward. Meanwhile, alone in the war room, Traore stood facing the national flag, his hands behind his back. A single file sat on the table beside him, a fresh report. It confirmed what he feared. Dio had been in contact with Côte d'Ivoire's military attaché. Multiple times, unencrypted lines, scheduled meetings disguised as training reviews. It was there, in plain sight. Only the truth had worn a different name. He heard the door creak, turned. Idrissa stood there, breathless. We traced a signal. It wasn't outbound. It was a trigger command. Triggering what? We don't know yet. But whatever it was, Dio pulled it. Traore took the file and handed it over. Then tomorrow, he said, we hunt the general. As dawn crept over the horizon, bathing the city in red and gold, the president of Burkina Faso looked out his window, face calm, soul on fire. He knew now that the worst betrayal was never the blade. It was the hand that smiled as it passed it to the enemy. The sun had barely broken over Ouagadougou, yet inside the palace, the war had already begun. President Ibrahim Traore sat alone in the observation room, its high windows casting light over a wall of screens. Each screen showed a hallway, a corridor, a staircase. Silent surveillance footage fed from hidden cameras placed across the compound. He wasn't watching for insurgents. He was watching for ghosts in uniform. In the center screen, General Yakuba Dio appeared, walking confidently down the West Wing hallway. Crisp uniform, perfect salute. He nodded to every guard, smiled at every staff member. His presence radiated control, reverence. But Ibrahim no longer trusted reverence. Where's he headed now? Traore asked. From behind him, Captain Idrissa replied, Communications Center. Same as yesterday, same as the day before. Does he carry a device? He's never once failed to bring a medical briefcase. Traore narrowed his eyes. Run thermal scans through the corridor archive. Show me that case. Seconds later, one screen lit up in false color. The briefcase glowed hotter than it should. Something inside it emitted steady pulses of low-frequency heat. Not medicine. Open the door, Traore ordered. 2 hours earlier, General Yakuba Dio had stood before the National Defense Council and delivered a stirring report on border stability. Our supply lines are solid. Recruitment is strong. The militia threat along the eastern provinces has been suppressed, he said, but we must remain alert and, as always, united. Everyone in the room nodded. His voice was velvet, his presence heavy. Even the junior officers sat straighter when he entered. He had served under 3 governments, trained thousands of troops, and never once stepped out of protocol, yet he was lying through his teeth. The moment the council disbanded, Dio moved with calm haste down a restricted hallway. He passed 2 guards, nodded, unlocked a small door near the communications wing, a room that officially no longer existed. Inside, he locked the door behind him. The room was windowless, lined with old equipment and forgotten crates. In the EI corner, beneath a rusting medkit, sat a custom-built satellite transmitter hidden inside what looked like a standard medical box. Dio knelt, typed a code, and slid in a coded chip. The device blinked red, then green. A soft beep. He began to transmit. Target. Neutralized attempt failed. Asset exposed. Operation compromised. Awaiting green light for Phase 2. He hit send, a pause, then another beep. He frowned. Not confirmation, an echo. The machine buzzed strangely. A voice crackled through the speaker. You're sending to. Late, General. He already knows. Dio spun. Standing in the doorway, arms folded, eyes locked in, was President Ibrahim Traore. The general didn't move. For the first time in years, the mask slipped, and the fear underneath bled through. "You bugged my channel," Dio said, voice flat. "For days," Traore replied. "We watched your calls, your transfers. We even followed the man you had switch out the comm chip." Dio straightened. "Then you know why I did it. I know you betrayed this country. I protected it. By selling us to foreign agents?" Dio stepped forward. "Ibrahim, I trained you. I shaped this army. I kept this country from imploding when others ran. But I saw what was coming. The French were leaving, yes. But so were the rules. What you call revolution, they call chaos. You think I don't know how afraid they are? You don't know what they promised." Traore's voice dropped. "What did they promise you?" Dio's gaze hardened. "That if I didn't help, they'd burn everything." A long silence. "Fear," Traore said. "You chose fear. I chose survival. No, you chose submission." Suddenly, Dio moved. Fast, trained, reflex sharp. His hand went for the gun at his hip, but before he could draw it, the window behind him shattered. A Red Lion operative flew through, landing in perfect stance. Another surged through the opposite door. Dio found himself pinned to the wall, breath heaving, blood rising. Traore stepped forward, his voice ice. "You trained thousands of soldiers, Dio. But you forgot something," Dio sneered. "What?" "That loyalty can't be taught. It has to be earned." He turned to the Red Lions. "Take him to Cell 7. No contact, no visitors, strip rank, strip privilege." As Dio was dragged away, he looked over his shoulder one last time. "They told me you'd destroy us," he whispered. Traore met his eyes. "Then they should have sent more convincing prophets." Hours later, news spread through the palace like a thunderclap. General Dio arrested. The silence in the mess hall was suffocating. Soldiers whispered. Staff avoided eye contact. The man they had once called the Rock had crumbled in public. Traore stood before his council that evening. Smaller now, stripped of 2 ministers and a general. He spoke plainly. "Some of you may wonder why I didn't act sooner. Why I didn't arrest Dio the moment we suspected." He scanned the room. "I needed to see who would follow his lead and who would stay behind." He dropped a dossier on the table. His messages weren't encrypted. He wanted them found. Wanted us to know that he had already sold the coordinates of our military stations, that he welcomed foreign mercenaries into West Africa as long as they didn't touch his seat. Someone spoke up, a junior defense analyst. "Do we know how far the betrayal goes?" Traore nodded. "Too far for comfort, not far enough to stop us." Another officer asked, "What happens now?" Traore's jaw tightened. "We move forward, and we do it with eyes open. No more heroes, no more untouchables." He turned to Captain Idrissa. "Bring me everything Dio ever signed. Every meeting he attended, every junior officer he mentored." "And then?" Idrissa asked. "We clean house." In the quiet of his office, Traore lit a candle. No electricity, no sound, just the old way. He unsealed a folder marked Asset Kane D. Photos, satellite feeds, bioprofiles, psychological profiles, a handwritten note from Kane's agency handler. One line stood out. "If Phase 1 fails, proceed to destabilization through internal fragmentation." It all made sense now. Kane had been the spark. But Dio was the matchbook. And somewhere in this palace, the next flame was already waiting. Traore looked toward the darkened hallway beyond his office. "I see you," he whispered. "Even if you think you're invisible." The sun was high and cruel when the black SUV crossed the dusty road out of Burkina Faso. No flags, no sirens. Just 4 men in civilian clothes, all Red Lions, and one man in the back seat, silent, steady, watching every curve of the dirt. Path as if it held the answer to a question no one had yet asked. Ibrahim Traore had left the palace without ceremony. He didn't inform his council. He didn't even take his usual convoy. The meeting he had scheduled was not diplomatic. It was personal. They reached the old customs station on the Burkina Faso-Côte d'Ivoire border by early afternoon. The place had been abandoned years ago. Cracked walls, torn flags, broken windows, a ghost of bureaucracy. But today, it held new ghosts. 2 armored Ivorian vehicles waited near the checkpoint. Around them, a small tactical unit stood alert. None raised their weapons. From the lead vehicle, a man stepped out, tall, wide-shouldered, and silent, beneath a weather-worn, capped General Kawasi, right hand of President Alassane Ouattara. Former commander of elite Ivorian forces, known for his cold logic and ruthless discipline, he looked at Traore without smiling. "This is not your land, President," he said. Traore stepped forward, hands behind his back. "Neither is it yours, if we're talking about sovereignty." Kawasi didn't blink. "You come here unannounced. That can be seen as an act of aggression. Then consider it a favor. I could have sent something louder." They stared at each other in silence, the kind only soldiers understand, the kind where words mean less than posture. Finally, Kawasi motioned to a nearby table where a brown folder had been placed. "Before you accuse me of anything, look at that." Traore opened the folder. Inside, satellite images of a foreign training camp near the Ghanaian border. Audio transcripts from Daniel Kane's mission logs. Flight manifests showing private planes with no-call signs landing in Korhogo, Côte d'Ivoire. Kawasi watched him carefully. "You thought you were the only one being watched, Ibrahim?" Traore looked up. "So you admit it?" "I admit nothing. I'm showing you that this war isn't yours alone. But your government sanctioned my assassination." Kawasi exhaled, but said nothing. Traore stepped closer. "Why? Why not just push propaganda, fund the opposition, pressure the unions, like everyone else?" "You're not like everyone else," Kawasi said. "You didn't just reject the French. You called them out. You didn't just stop the UN trucks, you filmed it. You didn't just survive a coup, you became a flag." He paused. "That's dangerous." "For who?" "For the map." Traore's eyes narrowed. "What map?" "The one they're redrawing. One without strong black leaders. One with empty lands and controlled governments." Kawasi walked slowly around the table. "This isn't just about you. It's about an idea that's growing. Mali, Niger, Guinea, even Chad. Countries waking up. You call it revolution. They call it a virus. And viruses must be contained. By murder, if needed." Silence fell again. Then Kawasi added, "Daniel, Kane wasn't the only one they sent." Traore's eyes locked on him. "Where is he?" Kawasi hesitated, just long enough for the message to land. "He's gone." "What?" "He escaped last night." Traore stepped forward, voice low and dangerous. "How?" "That's the part you'll hate the most." Kawasi looked him in the eyes. "He had help, from inside your own palace." The air inside the SUV was tense as Traore made the return trip across the border. No one spoke for several minutes. Then a call came in on the secure line. Captain Idrissa's voice came through, ragged. "Sir, it's true. Kane is gone." Traore closed his eyes. Details. 2 guards drugged, surveillance cut for 6 minutes, wrist tracker disabled. We found a back exit opened with a master key. Only 6 people have access, including the Minister of Defense, Traore finished. "Yes, sir." Traore's jaw tightened. "Hold him for now, quietly, and do not alert the council." He ended the call. One of the red lions in the front seat turned. "Sir, what do we do now?" Traore looked out at the endless dust ahead. "We stop playing chess," he said. "From now on, we fight face to face." Back in Ouagadougou, the palace was a fortress on edge. Orders had been issued to rotate guards every 2 hours. Security clearance was re-verified. No one moved without dual confirmation, but beneath the surface, a deeper rot had begun to reveal itself. In the palace war room, Traore sat before a map of the region. Red pins marked military bases. Blue circles indicated suspected spy hubs. Several had direct or indirect ties to foreign private security firms. The note recovered from Kane's cell now lay in front of him. "You can stop the foot soldiers, but the generals are already bought." He read it again and again. Then he looked up. "Where's Sangare?" he asked. Idrissa frowned. "Minister of Defense is scheduled at a press briefing in an hour. Cancel it. He'll notice." "I want him to." Traore stood. "From this moment on," he said, "I trust no one who hasn't bled for this country in the last 12 months. If they haven't been to the front lines, they're not at this table." He paused and watched the medical staff again. The old doctor wasn't working alone. Meanwhile, in a quiet room far from the main wing, Colonel Hamidou Sangare was speaking in hushed tones on a private phone. "No," he said. "He doesn't know yet. The general's arrest shook him, but Kane's escape went smoothly. Yes, I'll be ready. No contact until the signal." He hung up and slipped the phone back into a hidden compartment beneath the table. Outside, the guards passed by without even glancing in. Inside, Sangare poured himself a cup of tea. His hand was steady. His heart was not. That night, under the cover of darkness, Traore climbed to the roof of the palace. He stood alone, the city stretching out before him like a sleeping beast. Everything was changing. The plot wasn't just against him. It was against a movement, one that refused to kneel, one that dared to say no more. Kane was gone. Dio was in chains. Kawasi had confirmed the war wasn't about borders, it was about control. But control worked both ways. Traore looked up at the stars, then spoke softly to the night. "You lit the fire." He turned, walked back toward the stairs. "Now watch how we burn." The code name was whispered for the first time at 03:17 a.m. Operation Tiger. It wasn't written down. It wasn't entered into any system. It passed only through trusted mouths in closed rooms. President Ibrahim Traore had grown tired of shadows. The traitors he'd exposed had only been the skin of a deeper sickness, and now he was going to carve it out. He stood before his most loyal men, 12 operatives from the Red Lions, soldiers who had fought with him in the deserts of the Sahel, who had bled for the revolution, and who owed their loyalty not to titles, but to fire. "No names, no questions," Traore said. "You will each watch one minister, one officer, one staff member. I want movement logs, conversation recordings, everything down to their grocery lists." He pointed to the map behind him. The palace, the ministries, the outer sectors. "This is not surveillance. This is purification." Captain Idrissa stepped forward. "And the target?" "I don't know yet, but I know he breathes my air." For 3 days, Operation Tiger slithered quietly through the corridors of power. Phones were tapped, meetings recorded, vehicles tailed, anonymous tips filed by loyal janitors or nervous interns were quietly checked. Data was cross-referenced across non-existent networks, and one name began to echo in every dark corridor: Colonel Hamidou Sangare, Minister of Defense, decorated, trusted, promoted personally by Traore 6 months earlier for unwavering patriotism and strategic brilliance. But beneath that starched uniform, patterns began to emerge. Sangare had skipped national security briefings twice in the past month, citing diplomatic back-channeling. His driver had made 3 unscheduled night trips to the outskirts of the capital. His assistant had recently purchased disposable phones, 2 of which pinged near abandoned colonial compounds. "This is organized. This is war," Traore said. He looked at the screen again. A line from Kane's handwritten notes stood out. They don't want control through politics. They want silence through contracts. He read it twice, then looked up. No more silence. That night before sleeping, Traore sat on the edge of his bed, staring out into the open courtyard of the palace. He thought of Dio, of Sangare, of Kane's laugh. He thought of the hundreds of hands shaking under tables in air-conditioned boardrooms, and he knew what came next. He picked up his phone. "Prepare a channel to Bamako and Niamey," he said. "We're not alone in this. It's time to wake them up." The war room beneath the presidential palace had never felt more alive. A single overhead light buzzed faintly. The long metal table at the center was bare, except for one object. A wide folder, black, unmarked, and heavy. Inside it, the contents, recovered from the mansion where Daniel Kane had been hiding. Traore had not allowed a single page to be scanned digitally. This meeting would happen face to face. No screens, no microphones, no cables. At 18 hours, the door opened. 2 men entered, both dressed in civilian clothes but carrying the weight of military command in every step. Colonel Amadou Diarra, Chief of Strategic Intelligence for Mali. General Idriss Maiga, Defense Coordinator for Niger Traore, rose from his chair and greeted them with quiet strength. "We have no time for ceremonies," he said. "What I'm about to show you is not theory. It's not politics. It's proof." He opened the folder. They began with the maps. Traore unfolded them on the table, layer after layer, inked in surgical detail, military base layouts in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, marked weak points in communication systems, proximity overlays, linking foreign mercenary deployments to critical infrastructure. Diarra frowned. "These positions, they're accurate, even the private airstrips." "They knew everything," Traore said. "Not just about me, about all of us." He handed over a set of documents marked Nix Solutions, a security firm based in Delaware, he explained. No public operations listed, but through dummy corporations they fund drone surveillance in Niamey. They also subcontract extraction security near your lithium mines. Maiga's face darkened. "We were told those were neutral observers." "They're not," Traore said. "They're forward scouts." Diarra opened another envelope. Inside, an organizational flowchart. Nameless roles, only call signs, nodes of influence, bank account routing, crypto wallet IDs, arrows linking ministries to foreign embassies to international NGOs. "This is sabotage," Diarra whispered. "Not politics. Economic warfare." Traore leaned in. "They're not trying to conquer. They're trying to own, quietly, permanently, and they'll kill anyone who disrupts that." He paused. "They already tried with me. They failed." The room fell silent. Traore stepped back and let the evidence settle like dust in a tomb. Maiga finally asked, "What do you propose?" Traore didn't hesitate. "An alliance." He tapped the map 3 times. "Ouagadougou, Bamako, Niamey. We've been divided too long." They counted on that. "But this isn't just about borders anymore. It's about survival." He turned to face them both. "I propose Operation Dignity, a regional sweep to expose, dismantle, and remove every foreign influence that has compromised our systems, military, political, financial." Diarra raised an eyebrow. "That would trigger a response." "I hope it does," Traore said. "Because this time we'll respond together." Maiga asked, "Who leads?" Traore looked him in the eye. "No one. And everyone. This isn't about supremacy. It's about sovereignty." By midnight, the pact had been sealed. 3 nations, 1 operation, 0 compromises. Operation Dignity would move in phases. Phase 1, internal sweep, covert audit of high-ranking officials in each country. Tracing and freezing of suspicious financial assets. Surveillance of foreign agents embedded in NGOs, embassies, and consultancies. Phase 2, external purge. Immediate seizure of private military equipment. Raids on unauthorized compounds and unregistered foreign security zones. Disruption of satellite relay stations found near strategic sites. Phase 3, global exposure. A joint statement broadcasted to all African nations. Release of documents proving the network of interference. Invitation to other governments to join a continental initiative of self-determination. Later that night, Traore sat alone on the balcony of his private quarters. The stars stretched, wide over the city, quiet and ancient. He didn't smoke, he didn't drink, but he held a small piece of paper in his hand, torn from Kane's personal journal. They don't need bullets anymore, only contracts and time, he whispered, to the stars. Then we break the clock. The next morning, news began moving, subtly at first. 3 officials in Bamako placed under investigation. 2 financial consultants detained in Niamey. In Ouagadougou, a private data firm linked to mining tech was raided before breakfast. Fatsumhei. Media couldn't hide it. They tried to frame it as anti-corruption efforts, but the people felt the truth beneath the headlines. Something was shifting. At 16 hours, Traore entered a secure media chamber. No press, just a live stream, no intermediaries, just him. Behind him, the map. Before him, the lens. He looked straight into the camera and began, "We are done being told what to think. Done being ruled by money with no flag. Done being played like pieces on someone else's board." He held up the folder. "Here is your proof, not conspiracy. Documentation, not speculation. Coordinates, contracts, blood." He stepped closer. "You call us threats. We call ourselves sovereign. You call this rebellion. We call it resistance. And, finally, you came to bury us. But we are the soil, and we have decided to grow." That night, in villages and cities across West Africa, crowds gathered, people chanted, flags were raised. Elders who had never touched a smartphone were shown footage of Traore speaking truth to power. The winds had shifted, and in offices far away, in Paris, London, Washington, the silence was deafening. In a closed boardroom of a private firm, a man in a gray suit closed his laptop. He turned to the others in the room. He made it through phase 2. One of them asked, "Do we escalate?" The man shook his head. "Cancel the operation. We'll find another way." The air in Ouagadougou was thick, not with heat or dust, but with something deeper, something electric. A silence had settled over the city. Not fear, not tension, anticipation. In bars and village huts, on university lawns and neighborhood rooftops, people crowded around old radios, flickering televisions, and glowing phones. The streets had emptied. The military had not enforced it. The people had done it themselves. They were waiting, across the continent, from the highlands of Ethiopia to the beaches of Dakar. From the streets of Lagos to the markets of Kinshasa, the story had spread. Something was happening in Burkina Faso, something no one had dared before. At 20 dials at GMT, the national feed cut to black. Then the screen flickered to life. President Ibrahim Traore stood alone at a podium. No flag behind him, no advisors beside him. Just a dark background, a spotlight, and the weight of a continent on his shoulders. He didn't open with greetings. He didn't thank the media. He spoke as if addressing a single listener, a friend, a brother, a sister, across Africa. His voice was steady, clear. For too long, we have been told what to do, who to trust, what to believe, who we are, and what we are not. A pause. We were colonized, then liberated, in name only. They changed their uniforms, but never their hands. They still reached into our soil, our skies, our blood. He raised a folder, the same one retrieved from the mansion. Inside this are the names, maps, accounts, and contracts that show how foreign agents, private military companies, and compromised officials have tried to dismantle the sovereignty of not just Burkina Faso, but of Mali, Niger, and beyond. The camera slowly zoomed in. They sent assassins. They bribed our ministers. They poisoned our tea. They whispered in the ears of our own people. And still, he leaned forward. We are here. A beat of silence. They tried to break me. They made me stronger. Now tell them. He turned his gaze directly into the camera, as if piercing every living room across Africa. We are awake. The feed cut to video documents flashing across the screen, satellite photos of military bases marked by Nick Solutions, maps labeled Phase 3, Regional Stabilization, recordings of Kane's confession, shown with subtitles in French, English, Arabic, Hausa, Swahili, still images of General Dio, Colonel Sangaré, and the conspirators arrested at the palace. Then, a live feed. Daniel Kane, seated in a steel chair, restrained but alert. Traore's voice returned in narration. This man was sent to end my life. He failed. He now lives not as a prisoner, but as a witness. Kane looked up at the camera. For once, no smirk, no pride, just silence. Then, more footage, encrypted calls, GPS trails, financial ledgers. The web was no longer invisible. It was on full display. Across Africa, reactions erupted. In Ghana, opposition members called for transparency about military contracts. In Chad, students marched carrying signs that read, "No more puppets." In Senegal, radio hosts debated the implications of what they now called the Ouagadougou broadcast. In Ivory Coast, President Alassane Ouattara canceled a scheduled appearance, citing internal review. In Washington, a man in a dark suit closed a laptop, sighed, and picked up the phone. "No further action," he said. "He's made himself too loud. We'll wait. Let the fire burn itself out." The line went dead. Meanwhile, in the palace, war room, Traore returned from the broadcast to a round of quiet nods. No cheers, no clapping, only purpose. Captain Idrissa handed him a final document. Intercepted correspondence from Dakar. Confirmed. 5 shell corporations linked to the same military firm. Traore took it without reaction. And the Eastern Corridor? Stable. No further incursions. Mali and Niger are holding. He turned to his team. "This is not a victory," he said. "It's a warning." He pointed to the map. "They will come again. Different names, different uniforms, but same hands." Tapped his chest once. "They don't fear my weapons. They fear my words." Before dawn, Traore returned to the cell block below the palace. He entered alone. Kane sat on the edge of his cot, eyes sunken, wrists chained. "I watched your speech," Kane said. "Impressive, dramatic. You're alive to see it," Traore replied. Kane chuckled. "And here I thought you'd execute me live." Traore stepped closer. "You came to break a country," he said, "but you made it stronger." He tossed a folder onto the floor. Kane's operations file. Inside, records of failed coups in Liberia, Guinea, Chad, and now Burkina Faso. "You weren't sent to kill me," Traore said. "You were sent to collapse hope." Kane didn't deny it. "You failed," Traore finished. "And now, you'll live long enough to witness what comes next." Kane looked up. "And what is that?" Traore smiled, but there was no joy in it. "A continent that no longer asks permission, that no longer bows to invisible kings, that no longer sells its future for someone else's comfort." He turned to leave. Kane called after him. "They'll find someone else." Traore didn't stop walking. "I hope they do," he said, "because I'll be waiting." At sunrise, the people flooded the streets, not to protest, not to riot, but to celebrate. Flags rose over balconies, drums echoed through neighborhoods. Soldiers stood straighter, prouder. Civilians shouted chants of unity. Children painted their faces with the colors of the flag. In the fields and in the city, across languages and generations, a single phrase echoed louder than any speech. We are awake. If you made it to the end, comment the word awake, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with